Welcome to Married to History, where we try to be informative, entertaining, and family friendly.
Aloha, I'm Christopher. I have a fancy piece of paper on my wall that says that I know more about history than most people do.
I'm Shirley. I'm a homeschool mom that relies on good curriculum, Christopher, and Wikipedia to teach our kids history.
Before we get into our episode, let's take a minute to talk about something from a past episode. It's important to keep in mind that Shirley doesn't warn me about our topic beforehand.
Yep, it's fun for me to see what he knows right off the top of his head, and that means sometimes we miss things. If you would like to hear a more comprehensive and well-prepared episode on any topic, just let us know. So, honey, what have we learned since last time?
You're going to have to remind me what we talked about last time.
I know, we haven't recorded in a very long time.
I was just trying to explain the difference between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists to my students this morning, so that's the most recent thing on my mind.
Yeah, no, we haven't done an episode about that. But the only notes I had here were more information about the Tulsa race riot.
Oh, okay.
Or race massacre. I learned that might be a more accurate name. Some people prefer.
People recognize it no matter which name you use.
Yeah. So as I was looking into it to get pictures for our social media, I was learning all kinds of cool stuff. So the incident occurred with Dick Rowland and Sarah Page on May 30th, 1921.
Okay.
He was arrested the next day. And then that night, like over the night between May 31st and June 1st, for 16 hours was the riot.
Okay.
Okay, so we talked about all that. So it wasn't until June 18th when the grand jury finally indicted Dick Rowland.
Okay.
So that's something that I don't think that we made clear. He was not lynched.
Because, I don't think I remembered that. I didn't think about it. I couldn't remember what exactly happened to him.
Yeah, so he lived. The mob did not get to him. So by June 18th, so
good on the
half
police
a month
for
later,
keeping him alive. And okay, I wonder how much of that was a good job on the police versus the mob turned their attention towards other things instead.
Like the whole town, all of Black Wall Street, Greenwood District.
Either way, I do want to salute the police in that matter, because as I recall, the sheriff or the marshal, whoever the guy in charge was, he was very adamant about, no, you are not breaking in here and lynching this boy.
Yeah, that's what I thought that I had read too. So he was indicted, but by September 15th, the indictment was dismissed. And then by the end of September, his charges were completely dismissed because Sarah Page never,
she never testified against him, never even accused him, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So they don't have much case in that case. So, end of September, he was set free. Now, it seems like the sheriff probably took him to Kansas City. So, smart man, get him out of town.
You don't want to put him back in that town.
Yeah. And there's some evidence that later he ended up moving to Oregon and living the rest of his life in obscurity in Oregon, perhaps. So, yeah, it sounds like he's kind of lost to history. Like, he survived, thank goodness.
I hope obscurity also means peace.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't imagine that, even if you do live a quiet, secluded life after that, I can't imagine that that's something that doesn't regularly bother you. Like how can one forget about that day where a mob showed up to try to hang me when I hadn't done anything, right?
And not that it's his fault in any way, but survivor's guilt is a thing that would be hard to live with the trauma of that whole thing.
He survived. Oh yeah,
I don't know.
I cannot imagine what that must have been like for any of the people involved, and I can only say that I'm happy that I don't understand that, or that I have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, you haven't experienced something like that. All right, so, after that downer, I do have a history question for you.
I love history questions.
Okay.
I'm in a bit of a sad mood at the moment, but I still love history questions.
Bring it back up. Okay, so we did this a while ago when we talked about Gilgamesh. You have that big poster of your favorite historical figures or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I want to ask you about another one.
Okay.
So, honey, my question is, who is that?
That's Elizabeth I.
Elizabeth I. All right.
Queen of England.
What can you tell me about her?
She was a woman.
Is that the only noteworthy
Well, that's
thing
the
about
only,
her.
yeah, that's really the only thing noteworthy about her. No, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So, okay, well, there's lots to know about her. So, do you
Mhm.
want to ask me some follow-up questions, or do you just want me to like start at whatever beginning I choose and then ramble until I've exhausted myself?
It's kind of fun to just hear you ramble. Like, I'll find ways to make fun of you
Okay.
as you go.
All right. So, Elizabeth, if I recall correctly, so she is the daughter, the only child that Anne Boleyn gave to King Henry VIII.
Like, in a package, like, wrapped her up with a bow. Gave her to Henry.
She is the only product of Henry knocking up his second wife.
This is a family-friendly show.
She is the only child that Henry VIII and his then wife Anne Boleyn had.
Okay.
Happy now?
I'm happy.
And Henry, of course, was a mighty upset dude because once again it was a girl. So a little bit of a
How
backstory.
dare she give him
A
a
little bit of a
girl.
backstory. So yes, first off, back in these days, the queen was to blame if the kids turned out to be the wrong gender.
Right. The
and-
quote, wrong gender.
And for those of you who might not be aware, Henry VIII famously had several wives, 6 in total.
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe there were 6 of them.
There were 6 in total, yes.
And they were really good singers.
His first wife, Shirley is referring to a musical that she loves, which is
It's
actually a good
amazing.
musical. I've enjoyed it myself, called Six. If you get the opportunity, you should listen to it.
Yes, you should.
So anyway, back to what
Sorry,
I was saying.
go ahead.
So his first wife of like 20, maybe more years, had nothing but daughters with her. So
They had one daughter and a bunch of miscarriages.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm thinking of. All
Yeah.
right. So yes, he had the one daughter, Mary, famously known as Bloody Mary, but that's another story slightly. And so he eventually decides that okay, he wants to he wants to be with another woman. He doesn't have to be a wife. It just has to be another woman who will give him a son. And so he does do some flirting around. So let's be clear. He had 6 wives. He also had children from women that he never did marry. So there were more women in the
Right.
story.
Okay, but so I learned that from the musical. He did have a son,
Yes.
and he like named him Henry, like or so, his name had some significance to prove that like no, this is my son, and I am accepting him as my son. But
But if I remember
But-
correctly, that son was Anne Boleyn's sister's son.
wait,
And Anne Boleyn, if I'm remembering correctly, forced Henry to disavow them.
Seriously?
Which is why, yeah, because if I remember correctly, her sister had 2 sons, 2 kids. I believe 1 boy and 1 girl. I might be remembering wrong. But I believe she had 2 of Henry's children, and he disavowed both of them, I believe, at Anne Boleyn's request.
dude. Okay,
So anyway,
It's messy.
To try
That's-
to jump ahead a little bit, so Anne Boleyn supposedly is responsible for a whole bunch of nefarious things that Henry does for the sole purpose of getting a divorce from his first wife Catherine and being able to marry Anne again with the goal of getting to have a son. That
Yeah.
she's going to give him a son.
he needs an heir.
Well, what do you know it? She failed, just like his first wife, to give him a son. And oh, was he mad about it! And he famously had her beheaded. Now, to be fair, I don't
threw
think
a temper tantrum.
I don't think he had her beheaded just because she didn't give him a son, but I'm sure that giving him another daughter did not help her case any.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth was that daughter, despite the fact that Henry was really ticked off because, oh, I got another daughter. All I got is daughters. Elizabeth goes on to be the longest lived and most successful of all of his children. So
Dude.
after Henry finally does die, the one son that he does have, which was from his wife after Anne Boleyn.
So legitimate heir accepted. This is my son,
Legitimate
born
heir,
of a
yeah.
queen.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, his name was Edward. I might be remembering that wrong.
Yeah, Zeddy.
All right. So Edward reigns, but Edward is a sickly boy, doesn't last very long, dies. So then his first daughter from his first marriage, Mary, Bloody Mary, becomes queen. She rules for a fairly short space of time. I don't remember how many years, but short compared to Elizabeth. After Mary dies, Elizabeth is the next in line.
Wait, is Mary executed? Because I
Mary-
know there
no.
was like some messiness
Mary-
between the daughters.
I do not believe Mary gets executed. If I remember correctly, she dies of natural causes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Mary dies I believe, of natural causes. I don't remember if she got sick or if there was something else to it.
Okay.
I want to say that she got sick, like she was because if I remember correctly, she knew her end was coming, and so she made a deal with Elizabeth that, all right, I will yield the kingdom to you if you make me such and such promises.
What?
And I don't think Elizabeth she didn't honor all of the promises. I don't remember if she honored any of that.
Okay.
So Elizabeth then becomes queen. She remains queen to the rest of her life. She never marries. There's plenty of rumors that she did have lovers and she did have courtships over the time. But the genuine idea, I believe, is that she never did marry. She chose never to marry because she did not want to give up her power and or she did not want to give England to somebody else, for somebody else to be calling the shots. She thought that she could do better. She thought
Right.
that all the men that were interested in the job were terrible, whatever the case
To
might
be
be.
fair, men are the worst. I don't actually believe that. You're wonderful, honey.
Oh, thank you. I will say what I'm sure I have said on many occasions. Some men are the worst.
Some men are
Some
absolutely the
people
worst.
are the worst.
Yes.
But there are also good
Yes.
men and good people.
Yes. Hashtag not all men.
I don't understand the hashtag craze. I'm a history guy. The hashtags and what I don't know if we mentioned this before, but Shirley was the one that finally got me to take a cell phone because I didn't want one for a long time, and then she finally got me to upgrade from a not flip phone.
Yeah.
So I don't remember if we told this story. I was when I was at college getting my teacher credential one day. I still had a flip phone back then, and while I was talking to one of my professors, I got a call. So I busted out to see who was calling me. I ended up ignoring it. I don't remember who it was because
It's
it wasn't
probably
important.
me. I'm the only one who called.
But but my professor saw the phone and said, "You're gonna be a history teacher, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah," because all of us teachers, the math teachers, the English teacher, science teacher, were all together, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be a history teacher." How did you know? I was like, "You guys are the only ones that carry phones like that."
Yep.
So yes, I'm an old timer. So yes, I don't get the hashtag craze.
Anyways, so she didn't
In my day,
marry
we called those
anybody.
things pounds. I don't know.
Number sign.
Number signs, yes. Where was I? Okay, so yes, Elizabeth
didn't
Mistress.
marry.
And so a lot of really cool things do happen during Elizabeth's time as queen. Probably the most famous or the most impactful of all is Spain tries to conquer England. The Spanish king, through a bit of trickery, a bit of a diplomatic and deceitful play, arranges to get casus belli on England. Casus belli, I do not. I think it means good cause. I might be remembering that wrong. It's a Latin term. Basically, what it means is justification, a religious justification for
Okay.
going to war. Because
It
the people were
sounds-
civilized back then. Oh, you can't just go off and conquer
You have to
somebody.
have
You
a
have to have a
reason.
good reason.
It sounds like you're saying cast a spelly like a witch.
No, Casus. I don't remember how to spell
Yeah.
it, but in my head, I'm pronouncing it CASUSBELLI. I want to say.
No idea.
Yeah. So anyway, he's able to get that because Elizabeth, having supposedly fallen for a ruse, I don't remember if this is confirmed, but Elizabeth does have Mary, Queen of Scots, her cousin.
There's too many
executed.
Marys in that family. Side note. Go ahead.
Not Bloody Mary, but Mary, the
Yeah.
Queen of Scots. She has Mary, Queen of Scots, executed. Mary,
Okay.
Queen of Scots, at that time has a claim to the English throne.
Yeah.
She was not Henry's daughter like Elizabeth was, so that's
Like
what
a
gives Henry
cousin or
more-
niece.
But she was a niece of Henry.
Yeah.
So she and Elizabeth were cousins.
Okay.
So Mary, as Queen of Scots, I don't remember how serious, but any attempt that she made for the throne was never that big of a deal, never really that big of a
Okay.
threat. But supposedly there's a plot to assassinate Elizabeth that fails, and supposedly Mary, Queen of Scots, is either behind that plot, or at least she was framed darn good
Suspected.
for being involved in that plot. So Elizabeth orders her execution.
Yeah.
Now, you don't do that sort of thing. She's a member of the nobility, of the aristocracy.
But-
She is a royal. You do not execute another royal. That is a no-no. So
But
that
they
gives
all do that though.
Philip Casus Belli reason to declare war, religious justification to declare war on England because Elizabeth is a criminal. She's killing other royals.
But why does Spain care that she killed a rival royal from not Spain?
Well, because first off, Scotland was not a rival to Spain at that time.
No, but
Scotland.
why does Spain care that Elizabeth killed one of Elizabeth's rivals that has nothing to do with Spain?
Because through the relationships, Mary also had some. The King of Spain was
Yeah.
also a relation to these two.
Right.
So Henry's first wife, Catherine.
Yeah.
She was the King of Spain's sister. Or
Yeah.
She had some really. I think he was his sister. I don't remember. I'm getting all entangled with all the relationships now. As you said, it's all kind of.
There's too many Marys,
jumbled
too
around.
many Catherines.
So yes, and for in reality's sake, there's probably no reason for the King of Spain to care that. All right, so he killed the Queen of Scotland, big deal. But Philip, King of Spain, he wants England. He wants to conquer England. He wants that to be his territory.
So it's an excuse. It's an
It's an
opportunity.
excuse for him to go and conquer England.
Yeah.
So he famously builds what is often referred to as the Spanish Armada or the Invincible Armada. Basically, deforests a whole huge chunk of Spain to build
Dude.
the biggest fleet, at least up until that point in time, ever assembled in Europe. And he sails that fleet off to go conquer England.
With the backing of the church, because
He has justification.
Elizabeth
Yeah, he's got a
bad.
casus belli. Though granted, at that point in time, with the power that Philip
Yeah.
had, even if the Pope had said no, Philip probably could have ignored him and gotten away with it.
right.
And unless I'm mistaken, the Pope at that time was also some manner of relative to them. Because I think the Pope might have been his uncle, or at least
Oh my god.
there was some kind of relationship in there.
Yeah.
Because I remember that's one of the reasons why the Pope didn't grant Henry a divorce in the first place. Catherine was in some way, shape, or form
Oh.
related to him. I wanted to say she was the niece of the Pope at the
Okay.
time. But again, I might be getting all my relationships mixed up.
Right.
Anyway, so yes, the Invincible Armada is probably the most famous thing that happens under Elizabeth's reign. The Armada sails to Britain. It's not called Britain then. The Armada sails to England. England is very famously able to defeat the Spanish Armada in battle, and they get lucky with the weather also, which does a
Yeah.
heck of a lot of damage to the Spanish Armada. What few ships do survive the trip up to England and get away from the battle and the bad weather and do make it back are dismal. It's arguable that this is the moment that changes European history so that Spain, once the undisputed dominant power of Europe, now starts its decline. It's not immediately, it's not like all of a sudden now, oh, England's strong and Spain weak. But it is that, okay, Spain is going to start to fall now and England is going to start to inch up. England was not a major player
Yeah.
at that point in history. But now, or more so after Elizabeth's reign, but this is the moment
Yeah.
during Elizabeth's reign where, all right, England's actually gotten some street cred, shall we say, for itself, and England is going to start inching its way up.
So this is like a turning point thing. Like if that battle, that war had gone differently, things have been different in Europe. Spain would have been strong.
Arguably,
England
things would have been drastically different. Supposing that the Spanish Armada had successfully landed, well, first off, we don't know if they would have won or not on the ground. But if they had won, well, that would have been major changes for history all over the world.
Yeah.
I doubt you get the United States, or you get the American Revolution, or any of the things that have come from the British legal system, from the British law, or probably anything that we recognize about democracy or representative government, we wouldn't have any of those things anymore because all of that, at least in Western culture, for the most part, came out of Britain.
Right.
So, most of the government system that we have today starts from England all the way back to the days of the Magna Carta. Traditions that are set
Yeah.
up in the Magna Carta lead ever so slowly to more and more of a representative, or more and more of a weakened monarchy type government
Stronger
in England.
parliament, Congress.
And as England eventually becomes a power, well, then that idea of a limited monarchy type government starts to spread around, and that leads to more seeds of even more limited government, even more representation for people.
Yeah.
But if Spain conquers England during Elizabeth's reign, well, then that limited monarchy, that constitutional monarchy that it's called, well, that goes away. And assuming that Spain wins and is able to maintain control there, then you've got nothing now but absolute monarchy.
Would that have crushed the Protestant movement as well?
That absolutely would have crushed the Protestant movement because Philip was a devout Catholic.
Yeah.
And this was one of the things this was another one of the things that gives him kind of the casus belli. Not only is Elizabeth gone and killed another monarch, but those English people, they're among the Protestants. They're not following the true path.
Interesting. Okay. So why do you care so much about Elizabeth?
I like what she represents in history. First off, I like that she's a strong female role model for my daughters. There are lots of strong female role models in history, despite what people say. And I think that she's a fairly good one because, she was a strong queen. She survived a time where people did not want her to. And she went on and had a very long life because she arguably lived so long. She was able to get a lot of things done that were good for her country. like I said, England goes from being kind of just another country, it's strong-ish, but not taken really seriously on the world stage, but is going to become ever stronger under her rule, and eventually through her predecessors, England is going to eventually become the powerhouse of Europe, arguably I wouldn't say the undisputed, but arguably one of the top two players in Europe, all the way up until you get into the unification of Germany and Italy,
Right.
a good 200-300 years after she's dead. I like that she was a tolerant queen in the religious disputes. So
Tolerant?
yes, before her time. So when Henry breaks away from the Catholic
Yeah.
Church, there's a lot of Protestant and Catholic.
Yeah, it's back and forth.
Don't like each other
fighting
very
and-
much. When Mary becomes queen, she's a devout Catholic. She's the daughter of the Catholic queen, the first wife of Henry.
Yeah.
She puts England back into Catholic mode, and we get a whole nother round of Catholics and Protestants fighting.
Right.
This is why she's called Bloody Mary, because of how many Protestants she had killed, or at least were killed in her name
Yeah.
during her reign. And then when Elizabeth comes to be, so this was one of the deals that Mary made with her. It's like, okay, I'll make you my heir if you do this thing. One of them was that Elizabeth was supposed to promise to keep and maintain the Catholic Church. Now, if I remember correctly, Elizabeth never keeps and maintains the Catholic Church, but I believe she does, at least to the best of her power, she does limit the violence, or she encourages tolerance. She doesn't allow the Protestants and the Catholics to go around killing each other.
That's a big deal.
Arguably, it still did happen to a degree. I'm sure there were plenty of people that, without her knowledge or in dark corners of the world, still had Catholics and Protestants killing each other.
Right.
But at least from the best that I can remember, she was very, what was the word I used?
Tolerant.
She was very, yes, tolerant. She did not get into the religious arguments of it.
Okay.
On more than a couple of occasions when foreigners came to try to marry her, she said no to them. And mostly I like that, not because, okay, well, she denied herself happiness for like a happy marriage or whatnot, but she didn't
Women
want...
can be happy without being married.
She didn't want foreigners taking over her country, ruling for her people. I believe that she sincerely believed that she was caring and she loved her people.
Yeah.
Whether or not she did a good job of that, I shouldn't say that I can argue because I didn't live in the time and I've got the bias of history to back me. But I believe that she sincerely believed that she was doing good by her people.
That makes sense. Now, I've noticed that most of your favorite historical figures are military leaders in some way or the other.
Yes.
Would Elizabeth count in that category? Like, can she be credited with why they beat the Armada?
I would say, like a lot of things, it's a yes and a no situation. It's a mixed. All right. So this is why. So she never took command.
Okay.
Well, we know that at least on one occasion she did put on a suit of armor. Odds are, though, that she was making a speech. She was showing off. She was making a political thing. I do not recall any incidents of her ever actually putting on a suit of battle and then standing with her soldiers on what was going to be a field of battle. Well, because again, the Spanish never did land. But I'm sure she made a show of it.
Yeah.
So that said, despite that, she probably would have been the one to say, okay, I want this guy to take command of the fleet, or I want this guy to be a captain of a ship or something.
So she
she probably had that kind of influence, and she arguably picked good men to lead the battles out on the ocean, because the British do eventually win.
Yeah.
Now, some can argue that the British don't win because of the admirals that were in charge, but more so because of the logistics of the affair.
Just luck.
So, no, it wasn't luck. So, we often say that the English won because of superior seamanship, and it is undeniable that as the years go by, English seamanship is unmatched. The British Navy is a powerhouse from at least the Napoleonic era. They were before that, but from at least the Napoleonic era up to World War I, the British Navy was the powerhouse on the seas. You could not mess with them.
Yeah.
They were better. I remember it was a rule of the British Navy that for every captain in every ship that you're expected to be able to take out any enemy vessel that is at least a whole class heavier than you are.
Dude.
That was just expected that you could do that. And I'm thinking,
That's
I admire
high
that. And they did.
expectation.
The British Navy was very successful. But at this point in time, the British Navy doesn't exist. It's still England, and the English Navy really doesn't exist. I don't remember what the organization was, but I don't believe there was a Royal Navy at this time. There were ships that the Queen was enabled to say, all right, hey, You're all working for me now. We're
Okay.
taking your ships and you're going to form a navy. So the monarchy might have had some private ships, but I don't think there was an organized regular navy. I could be wrong.
Then how the heck did they beat the Spanish Armada?
Okay, so this is why they assembled enough ships, either
Yeah.
through taking them or volunteers joining. They put a commander or several commanders in charge, but at least one top guy, who, if I remember correctly, was Walter Raleigh. I might be getting that wrong. I think Drake was there, but I don't think he was in command. Francisco
Okay.
Drake's famous British privateer
Yeah.
at the time. So I think Drake was there, but I don't think he was command. I want to say Raleigh was in command, but I might be getting my names mixed up. But anyway, the main reasons that they were able to defeat the Spanish Armada are this. All right, so it wasn't that the British seamen outclassed the Spanish ships. The Spanish ships were bigger,
Yeah.
and thus they could take more of a beating and they could shoot out more too.
Yeah.
The British ships were smaller. This did mean, however, though, that they were faster, more maneuverable.
Right.
But their guns, their armaments were also smaller. So the main reason why the British are able to win, though, is because of this. The Spanish guns, for the most part, are big guns firing big projectiles. In often cases, I think their cannonballs were actually stone instead of metal, probably because the weight would have been too much. But
Okay.
because the Spanish cannonballs were so big, that also meant they couldn't pack as much ammunition. One of the main things that really devastates the Spanish Armada is they run out of ammunition real fast.
And then you
So a couple
can't
of things-
do anything.
So yeah, a couple of things happen. So one of the classic things that the British are going to use over and over again is one thing that they use in this battle are fire ships. They basically light one of their ships on fire, send it into the enemy fleet. The enemy fleet is hopefully packed enough so closely together that the fire is just going to burn through the fleet. And so they did have
Oh
some
my
success
gosh.
with their fire ships.
That just
not,
seems so wasteful.
not enough to. If you say it's wasteful, but if you can sink, say 3, 4, 5 more of the enemy ships, and it only cost you one, there is not a Navy admiral out there, I think, that would say that was a bad deal.
I know, but just like imagine the carpenter who spent I don't know how many months building this ship, deforesting Spain and to build these ships, and then it just gets set on fire.
What do the British care about the Spanish carpenters? It's not their fault.
I don't know.
So the fire ships were one tactic. Another one is that at some point during the battle, the English realized that
Does it
hey,
matter?
the British Empire doesn't exist yet. The people are still calling themselves the English people.
It's just a name. Okay, go ahead.
Well, okay, the United Kingdom doesn't exist yet. This is before Scotland and Wales and Ireland and England are all together. At this point in time, England is England. England has conquered Wales at this point, and I think England is in charge of Ireland too at this point. Pretty sure they're in charge of Ireland. I might be wrong. But Scotland is an independent country at this point. So the United Kingdom doesn't exist. The British people, the people of the British Isles are not united at this point.
Okay, sorry,
So I'm going to
distraction.
try to say English.
fine.
All right. So at some point, the English realize that, hey, Spanish are out of ammunition.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, they, instead of doing their kind of their strafing runs where they kind of sail past and take a couple of pot shots and then sail away before the Spanish can shoot back. When they realize the Spanish are out of ammunition, field day! So they sail on in there and they just start going point blank at the Spanish because Spanish don't got anything to shoot back with them. So they're able to do a lot of damage to the Armada with that too. And then I don't remember exactly where it happens, but at some point the weather kicks in the English favor as well, decimates the Spanish ships. They never end up making landfall on England. What the survivors of the fleet end up doing is they end up sailing up in the channel between England and Ireland, going all the way around the north of Ireland before any ships that did survive up to that point turn around and sail back to Spain.
Wow.
So the whole thing is a disaster for the Spanish. It
That
cost
stinks.
Philip a heck of a lot of money, not to mention resources, and he got nothing for it.
So did you just give up? He doesn't come back at Elizabeth after
There's
that?
there's no other major campaigns made against
Yeah.
England. No.
They last.
Yep.
Dang.
So this is one of England's greatest defenses throughout history has been the fact that it's an island.
Which should
It's very hard to it's harder to invade it, to take it because you need boats to transport your ships or to transport your soldiers.
it seems like it should be easier to invade it because it's a small island, like they have limited resources. Meanwhile, Spain can deforest their whole country and build 1,000,000 boats.
So that is a fair argument, but it is not that small of an island.
Yeah.
And in the case of this, yeah, so the Spanish should have won, but the British got lucky on a couple of things. Bad planning or bad logistics, I guess you could say, on the part of the Spanish. The weather kicking in. And one could argue to a degree, like, I don't think it's superior seamanship, but they did have competent naval commanders.
Apparently. But Elizabeth did not get on a boat herself.
To the best of my knowledge, Elizabeth never, ever, ever set foot off of dry land. I could be wrong, but I don't remember reading anything to suggest that Elizabeth ever even set foot on a boat in her life.
Well, now I want to know.
Well, and if you find out that she did, let me know, because then I would have liked to have learned something new.
Did she never visit any other country?
She might have. If she did, I don't remember reading about it.
Huh. It's like royals visit each other sometimes.
They do, but if I remember correctly, she was kept under house arrest for much of her life because they didn't want to run the risk of her getting loose and making a bid for an unjust bid for the throne.
Right. Can't have that.
This is something that people often don't understand about even like kings and queens, or especially heirs to the throne back in these times. A lot of times they were kept as hostages. Well, arguably well cared for hostages.
She wasn't in a dungeon.
But the goal was to keep an eye on them so that if ever an opportunity came for somebody else to seize power or get some money out of it, I have your niece, your cousin, your heir, whatever the case is.
Right.
Mary, Queen of Scots, for example, she was kept under house arrest by Elizabeth for a time to prevent her from challenging her to the throne.
Yeah. So I looked it up. You're right. Mary, Elizabeth's sister, Bloody Mary, she died of influenza, but she was sick before then. Like, they think maybe she had cancer. Sounds like. So yeah, she would have known that she was dying, I guess. Okay, anything else about Elizabeth that makes her just super awesome and we should all look up to her?
She wasn't as beautiful as people like to say that she was.
Why does her appearance matter?
So this is something that I remember. Even your not so horrible history.
Horrible Histories loves to talk about how ugly she was.
How ugly she supposedly was. So yes, I want to make sure that the beauty standards that we have today did not exist back in that time. Oh, they'd paint you as being beautiful or whatnot. Yeah. But yeah, most people were like. Most people were not they did not have the beauty standards that we have. I'm hesitant. Since I don't know what she physically looked like I don't remember reading any physical descriptions of her. At least I could read a book where an author does a remarkable job describing what a character looks like in physical features and whatnot, and I probably wouldn't understand what the heck they're talking about. Like I still don't understand what cheek gawk or gauge or whatever it is. I don't remember in a video game that I play where you get to tailor your character's face. One of the things is like cheek gaunt or something to that nature.
Oh, if you have gaunt cheeks, it means they're like hollow. You're very like.
Okay, so I learn something new every day. I'm a historian. The history doesn't care too much about people's cheek gout or whatever.
Okay, so I know about Elizabeth's appearance. So what's fascinating about her is that her appearance mattered to her so much that she only had like a small handful of paintings of herself that she approved of, that she liked, and it's suspected that like she didn't actually look like that. These painters were able to paint her enough like herself but hide all the things that she didn't like about herself. So there was only like these paintings that she approved of, and every other painting that we have of her isn't based on her. It's based on those paintings that she approved of. Yeah. So like things.
Understandable.
So things like the pale skin was definitely in fashion. Like you'd use lead-based paint and stuff. But she especially would cover up, or like she didn't want it shown in pictures, her smallpox scars. Apparently she was just riddled with smallpox scars, and she did not appreciate that being shown in paintings. And like she would have had like terrible teeth. You don't see that in paintings either.
I don't know that I've ever seen a painting of her baring her teeth.
That's true. Yeah.
I think most paintings, but I can't recall an old timey painting where the character ever revealed their teeth, or I should rephrase, where the teeth were ever depicted. That's a good
point. Yeah. But one cool thing that I did note is in paintings of Elizabeth, it looks like her waist is super, super tiny. And part of it, I think, is the optical illusion of like the front of her dress comes down into a point, from her waist down. And so there's a little bit of an optical illusion there. But I saw See, TikTok is great for learning history because I saw
TikTok?
somebody.
Really?
Yes, I saw somebody who they like. We have
TikTok is great for spreading information, yes, but I'd say it's fair to say that the information one gets off of TikTok is highly worthy of question.
That's the entire internet, honey. Even this podcast is entirely worthy of question.
Nonsense. This podcast is without failings of any kind. I welcome any challenge who would dare bring such to me.
No, genuinely though, we do want people to challenge us so we can learn more and like, because you do have this off the top of your head, and you're not infallible.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyways, the point was, like, I saw this
I've never
TikTok.
heard more malarkey in all my time.
I saw this TikTok where they had, I believe they had one of Elizabeth's dresses, or at least something that showed like an accurate measurement of Elizabeth's dresses, and we can see like, yeah, for real, her waist really was that tiny, like tiny, eensy weensy little waist. It wasn't just an optical illusion, and it wasn't just the painters painting her skinnier. Like, that was something that was true about her. It was really cool. It was kind of freaky to be like, whoa, she fit in that? But yeah, I'll have to find that video again and show you because it was nuts.
Okay.
It was nuts.
That's the only other thing that I'm inclined to say about her off the top of my head is the name Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
The state of Virginia got its name from Queen Elizabeth. It was named after the Virgin Queen. It's the popular nickname that I believe she's continued to have throughout history. So that's where it's. If you're named Virginia, you're named after. If you're named Virginia, believe it or not, you're named after Elizabeth.
Just so weird. Whatever. So hold on. So wait, help me out here. Timeline. So Virginia colony was founded when?
If I'm remembering correctly, I want to say 1605. So Elizabeth, after the failure of Roanoke and I think it was just Roanoke.
Yeah, Roanoke and then Jamestown.
Elizabeth only authorizes like one or two expeditions to the New World. Outside of that, she's not interested in it, and there's not a lot of call for it.
Okay.
So nothing really happens under her reign. After Elizabeth passes away, however, James the Sixth of Scotland becomes James the First of England.
Right.
It might have been James the Seventh of Scotland.
No,
I don't
it's
remember.
sixth and first, but I don't remember
Okay.
which Scots and England, which number gets which.
James the Sixth of Scotland becomes James the First of England.
I'm pretty confident it's six
So yeah,
and one.
so James is actually Mary Queen of Scots' son. Elizabeth didn't have any heirs.
Right.
So James, the Scottish king,
Yeah.
ends up becoming the English king. So
Yeah.
one could argue that in the wars that go on between
Yeah.
England and Scotland for several hundred years, one could argue that Scotland actually won that thing and became the king of all of England.
Right.
To put it to you like this, so the movie Braveheart, very famous.
Yes.
All right, so
You've mentioned it before.
I think I've mentioned it before. So the two kings in that movie are Edward the Longshanks, King of England. He's the bad guy of the film, and Robert the Bruce, who is not King of Scotland in the movie, but by the movie's end is revealed to have become King of Scotland.
Okay.
James is a direct descendant of Robert the Bruce.
Oh.
Elizabeth is not a direct descendant, nor was Henry VIII of
Right.
Edward. So Robert the Bruce won that war, or rather his descendants won that fight. One of his descendants becomes king of it all, and nobody of Edward's descendants becomes king of it all.
Yeah, the English throne, like it gets messy.
So anyway, under James the First's leadership, he authorizes and gives charters for American colonies.
Okay.
The first permanent colony, Jamestown, which I believe is found in 1605, might be 1615, but I'm pretty sure it was 1605.
Okay.
That is under his privilege, and it's entirely under his leadership and his successors' leadership that England starts colonizing the New World. So Virginia is settled or colonized and given its name after Elizabeth has died.
Okay, so under Elizabeth, Roanoke happens.
I believe it was under her reign. Yes.
Okay, so then under James, Jamestown is founded.
Correct.
Named for James.
Yep.
And Jamestown becomes the colony of Virginia?
Yes, Jamestown is the first permanent settlement that the British will make in the New World.
And it becomes the colony of Virginia.
Yes.
Okay. But so they named the colony after Elizabeth, even though she was gone. She was long gone. Why didn't they name it after the current king, James?
You already got the town. And it's not like people didn't revere Elizabeth or people didn't love Elizabeth.
Would James have hated
Elizabeth
that,
was his aunt.
Yeah, but like that doesn't matter. Everyone's killing everyone.
Elizabeth named him as her heir.
Oh.
So he had a cordial
Okay, so there wasn't
He had at least a somewhat cordial relationship with her.
Okay. 1607 is Jamestown.
1607.
Is when they landed.
2 years off.
They landed in Jamestown. Okay.
I remember... Okay, this is probably why.
What?
All right, so this is another college memory. I remember in one of my more advanced history classes, and this was with Professor Demir. Loved him. He was definitely one of my top 3 favorite professors.
Yeah, I remember him.
Good contention for my favorite one. Loved his classes, but I remember, I think this was the second class that I had with him. We're sitting first day. I don't remember what class it was, and I don't remember how the subject comes up. But he was very much the type where he would ask us to, all right, so what questions do you guys have? We'd ask him a question, and then if we couldn't answer it ourselves, he'd explain things to us.
Yeah.
Give us some stuff to think about. And I remember he asked, to answer somebody's question, he asked us, all right, so what happened in this year? So he must have said 1607.
Okay.
And none of us said anything.
Nobody remembered?
Nobody said anything. It's like, I couldn't think of it off the top of my head. What happened in 16? I don't remember anything.
That seems like the kind of thing that you would make fun of me for not knowing. Because that seems like it's a big deal.
Possibly, but as I just pointed out, in my head, the year was 1605.
Oh, God.
So I was like, I don't know what happened in 1607.
Yeah.
And he would, I swear, this must have gone on for like half an hour. He just sat there and over again asked us, really, nobody can tell me what happened in 1607. You guys are all graduate students. You guys are you're all and nobody can tell me. Wait, this must have been like an American history class too. Because like nobody can tell me what happened in 1607.
You guys made him question his will to continue teaching.
Probably.
Like
I said, this was the first day, so it can't have been his fault. He would have known that's not his fault.
Okay,
but
that makes a difference.
that group of us, we did not do a good job for our profession that day.
Oh my gosh, you should be embarrassed.
I am sorry that that when asked off the cuff, I do not remember what happened in all places of the world at every year.
So what year was Elizabeth coronated?
50 or 1650, 1660, somewhere in there.
16?
Yeah, 16. No, 15. Sorry, 15. Because 1605 was the 15. 1500s. Yeah, you're having a grand old time with us now, aren't you?
This is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't know the history, but I know the math, and that doesn't work.
We were talking about Jamestown. I had 1600s on the brain.
I know. Oh my gosh. Anything else?
Much like you, my history students do love it when I catch myself, or if they happen to catch me on something, and I'm like, wait, what? Oh yeah.
So fun. It's my favorite part.
So see, I'm not one of those history people that you talk about where it's like, oh, they're certain and they never recognize that they made a mistake or that they might be wrong about something.
I don't sound like
They can
that.
be wrong about something.
All right, unless you have anything else to say about how awesome Queen Elizabeth is, we're going to end it there.
She wore a red wig to her dying day.
Was it a wig? I mean, it was probably a wig.
She
Everyone
lost
wore
her hair
wigs.
color long before she died. So yeah, she had a red-headed wig made that she wore, I believe, all the way up until she died.
But her natural hair was red?
I believe so. I don't remember reading anything to suggest otherwise.
That's cool. All right.
I know they cast a blonde actress to play her in a movie once, but I don't think that they were that they did that on purpose to imply that she wasn't a natural redhead.
I have no idea. All right, we'll end there. Thank you for listening.
Really, that's it?
Oh, do you have more to say?
I thought you would have more questions.
I have 0 questions.
No questions?
No
I
questions.
thought you said you had history questions for me.
If you liked what you heard, then please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave us a 5-star review.
If you'd like to hear a future episode with more information about today's topic, contact us on Gmail, Facebook, Instagram, or that Chinese spy app at Married to History Pod.
Also, please contact us if you have a silly question idea or if there's something from history that you would love to learn about.
Check and verify anything you hear on TikTok, because some people are stupid.
The entire internet, honey. It's not just TikTok.
Yes, by all means, check and verify everything you read on the internet, especially if Abraham Lincoln told you that you have to believe everything that's on the internet. Just be sure to specify in your message if it's a silly or serious question, because we don't want to treat a genuine quest for knowledge like a joke.
Talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I never have history questions for you.
What are we doing here if you don't have history questions for me?
I mean,
You always have a history
I
question
have to
for me.
script it ahead of time.
Oh, so you get to script it, but I get it unscripted so that you can laugh at me for not knowing the answers, and I can't laugh at you. Oh, wait, no, I do laugh at you because you still don't know the answers, even though yours is scripted. My throat's getting sore. We should probably cut this off.
Yeah. Thanks for
Drink some water.
listening.